On this edition of Native Report, we experience Our Home, Native Minnesota, an exhibit at the Minnesota History Center.
We then visit Hocokata Ti, the new cultural center of the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux Community.
And we learn about the Sami Center of North America.
We also learn what we can do to lead healthier lives and hear from our elders on this edition of Native Report.
Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Blandin Foundation, the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation, and the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux Community.
Thanks for tuning in and welcome to Native Report. I'm Ernie Stevens.
And I'm Rita Aspinwall. Dakota, Ojibwe, and other indigenous peoples have lived in the Minnesota region for tens of thousands of years and are thriving there in the present day. The Minnesota History Center's new exhibit, Our Home, Native Minnesota, highlights the resiliency and strength of Native nations, communities, and individuals. Please join us as we experience Our Home, Native Minnesota.
This is our space, and this is a space for Indigenous stories and perspectives, and to help Native people feel welcome at this institution and to be better represented.
There are a number of different exhibits throughout the Minnesota History Center that touch on Native history, such as the history of treaties and boarding school experiences. But there was no space specifically dedicated to Native history in Minnesota until now with the exhibit Our Home, Native Minnesota.
Now we have a gallery. There's no closing date for this gallery, and I think that's really important to keep in mind. So I'm a public historian by training, and I came into this institution having a strong background and understanding of my history as a Dakota person. And in order to do public history and in order to do any sort of historical work today, I think we really need to focus on the living and thriving communities that we have. And some of the feedback that we got for this exhibit when we went out and talked to community members and Native educators was directly about that. Oftentimes museums center Native stories and experiences as purely historical. And not only are there ongoing consequences and ongoing effects of the trauma that we experience, but also the strong resiliency of who we've always been. You know, these stories need to be reflected today too. One of the elements about this exhibit that I really love came out of really listening to feedback from what community wanted to see in this space, and what community was really interested in was a space that focused on resiliency, that focused on who we really are as Native people, what our connection to the land and the universe here is, and focusing on people being people and people having a strong connection to this place that we love.
It's taken many years for the History Center to fully implement such an exhibit. The History Center has had an Indian Advisory Committee since 1987 and has worked with Native people even longer. But maybe now was the right time for Our Home, Native Minnesota.
It is a reflection of the fact that this institution has diversified and that there are Indigenous people here working and helping to elevate our community voices here and trying to break down barriers. The exhibit it's in first person, and we have many elements that are also in both Ojibwe and Dakota as well. For me personally, there's a painting here from my grandfather, Seth Eastman, and my grandmother's moccasins that were, she was a great-great-granddaughter of Seth Eastman.
Also on display is a 19-foot panoramic photograph of a celebration on the White Earth Nation. Exhibit developers hope the public might help identify individuals in the photo and maybe discovering their own personal connection to the history on display.
My family is from White Earth, so I'm a little biased when it comes to White Earth related items, but I will not lie about that. I'll yell it from the rooftops. But I had done research because I dance at the White Earth powwow, and so it's a big event for my family now to go to it every year. And this year was 151st annual powwow. So when I do research and collections, when I'm just doing my day-to-day job, coming across stuff from my community is really meaningful to me. And I found this panoramic shot from 1912 of the celebration. I was like, oh, this is wonderful, look at this shot. And I can't believe, because it's a high quality photo from so long ago, which is very rare, and to show people gathering at this event that I go to today. And we wanted to talk about, in the exhibit, about how Dakota and Ojibwe relationships are together. Because the more I talk about White Earth with other communities that are not White Earth, I learn more about it. And one of the communities where I learned a lot from is the Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate in South Dakota. And they have told me that when the White Earth powwow started 150 years ago-ish, they wanted dancers, but they did not have enough male dancers. So they called on Sisseton to invite them to have their male dancers come up to White Earth. And they came, and they have been coming every year since. I never knew it was going to be 19 feet wide, so that was a wonderful surprise because it's amazing, and so you can identify people in that. And our colleague, Dr. Maddie Harper DiCarlo, has identified a relative of hers in that photo. So I'm hoping more people will be able to do that, because unfortunately we do not have identifications for these people in this photograph. I absolutely love that all of these objects are out on display. People don't always think of like a little winnowing basket. They don't understand the full gravity of what could be told just with this winnowing basket. But so many traditions about birchbark, about ricing, about all these things can be told with just this one thing. So I think the objects themselves tell a huge story.
My hope is that non-Native people will come through this exhibit and their worldview will be shifted a bit. They will become more compassionate and understanding of our communities today. And my hope is that when Native people come through this exhibit, that they come through this exhibit feeling better represented at this institution and feeling empowered.
Bursa is a Latin word meaning bag or purse. The suffix itis means inflammation. We have over 150 small fluid-filled sacs called bursa that cushion the bones, tendons, and muscles near our joints. These can become inflamed, usually from repetitive motion, and this is called bursitis. The most common places for this to happen is near the shoulder, elbow, and hip. It can also affect the knee, heel, and big toe, but it can happen anywhere there are bursae. Treatment typically involves resting the joint and protecting it from further injury. Most of the time this will get better in a few weeks, but flare-ups are common. Joints affected can feel achy and stiff, and this is worse with movement or pushing on it. Sometimes the joint can be red and swollen. You should be seen for this if you cannot move the joint, or if the joint is excessively red or swollen, or if you get fevers. The causes of bursitis are repetitive motions or positions that put a lot of pressure on a joint. Throwing a ball repeatedly, pounding with a hammer repeatedly, lifting overhead repeatedly are things that put stress on joints. Any similar stress can lead to bursitis. Leaning on your elbows for prolonged periods, kneeling on hard surfaces when scrubbing floors or working on cars, or laying carpet can cause bursitis. People with rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, or gout can get bursitis easier, and trauma to a joint can also cause it. Obesity puts lots of stress on your hips and knees and is a contributing factor. Artists and musicians bring beauty into the world for the rest of us, and they are underappreciated. To add injury to insult, they are also more prone to bursitis due to repetitive motions with playing and practicing. As joints age and wear, they are more prone to bursitis. Using knee pads for kneeling, bending your knees when you lift, maintaining a healthy weight, exercising regularly, and stretching before strenuous activities will help prevent bursitis. Using a cart or a wheelbarrow when carrying heavy loads is what those things were made for. Diagnosing bursitis can usually be done based on a good history and physical exam. Sometimes x-rays can help rule out other injuries, and sometimes an MRI or ultrasound is helpful. Blood tests or getting some fluid from the joint is not always needed, but in some cases is helpful. Most of the time, bursitis gets better with conservative treatments such as rest, ice, and over-the-counter pain relievers. If those don't work, you should be seen. Physical therapy helps strengthen the muscles in the affected joint to reduce pain and prevent recurrences. A walker, cane, or other assistive device can help relieve pressure on hips and knees. Surgery to drain or remove a bursa is not very often needed. Sometimes joint swelling and redness can be an infection that needs to be treated with antibiotics. A corticosteroid injection often works wonders, and these generally work pretty quickly. Sometimes they need to be repeated, but often only one injection is needed. Corticosteroid injections can cause high sugars in some people with diabetes. Talk to your healthcare provider. Helping you is the reason they went to all that schooling. And remember to call an elder. They've been waiting for your call. I'm Dr. Arnie Vainio, and this is Health Matters.
Hocokata Ti is the name of the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux Community's new cultural center and public museum. In the Dakota language, it is a term for lodge at the center of the village or camp, and the community has wanted such a place for the past several decades. Come with us now as we learn how the building will serve as a community gathering space, cultural activity site, and public exhibit chronicling the history of the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux Community.
From afar, it's an impressive sight to see. The 7 teepees outside Hocokata Ti, the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux Community's new 84,000 square foot cultural center and museum.
The name of the building is Hocokata Ti, stress on the second syllable, Hocokata. That means the lodge at the center of the camp. And basically it's our community culture center and museum, mainly our gathering place for our community.
Is there anything that you can tell me about the current exhibit that is up right now?
Well, yeah, it's the name of it's Mdewakanton. In our language, we say Mdewakanton, the dwellers of the Spirit Lake. But Mdewakanton is the name. It's basically a timeline you walk through from our creation story. We have a few creation stories, and then you go through the seasons. We tried to tell the story of the seasons and pre-contact era of Euro-American settlers. And then we get into the treaty time and then how our tribe is now. So we have a lot of Dakota artifacts. We have examples of our dwellings, a teepee, summer bark lodge. We have some interactive things. You can, feel the different hides and fur, from the different animals. There's a beading exhibit, which is really popular with the kids. You make these different bead designs. The whole lower half is all for our community space, all of our cultural activities. And it doesn't stop there. We have 40 acres behind the building that you walk right out into the natural landscape. The teepees, there's 3 indoor enclosed teepees that are part of the building. And that's, we have the youth leadership teepee where they gather. The center one, we have the Dakota language teepee where we have our language classes. And then the one on the north side is called the Place of Honor. That's when we have invited guests over or we're staging for our general council meetings. We did 7 of them to represent the Oceti Shakopee of the Dakota people. You got your Dakota, Lakota, Nakota people. And so those represent those 7 bands of the Oceti Shakopee, the 7 council fires.
This center is 30 years in the making, and it is what the community members wanted, a place where they can tell their own stories in their own collective voices.
The whole community has been behind this project since the mid-90s when funds were appropriated. And we knew we needed a facility where we could come together as a community, where we could practice language and traditional arts and crafts and host different community functions, and also our general council, which is our main governing body. It's an amazing opportunity for our kids, for the next generation. I think it's a facility that's going to bring the community together, because we have a place where we can be together, where the kids can grow up and have activities and interact with all generations. I think this whole building is important in telling the story because so much thought went into the materials and making sure it reflects Minnesota and our homelands and reflects our people and tradition and culture, but still having a very modern facility where we've got technology in classrooms and this theater that, you know, we can host formal conference sessions and working sessions and be able to use all the technology that's available today. To have the teepees with, you know, the sage glass that dims so we can host different kinds of meetings in there. They're a comfortable space, but they still reflect our culture and tradition.
The Cultural Center and Museum highlight the connections the community has with its neighbors, with the land, to one another, and to their collective past. And it is because of the past that makes the present possible, and maybe can help guide a path to the future.
We have a really unique tribe here where we're really close-knit, and I think there's a lot to be learned from not only each other, but now we have our artifacts here in the museum, and those are our people's things, so we can learn a lot from that. I should mention the time capsule that we have here. We thought it was important to put some things together in this time capsule. We put a date of 50 years to have it opened, and our tribal members, you know, they gathered some things that are important to them that they want to share with the future generations, especially if they're not here to see that. And I think that'll be really powerful because, you know, things change, and this will be a way for us to communicate to them and you know, make sure that they never forget, you know, who they are and where they came from.
In 1969, there were only 13 original members here and their families, and they worked really hard to get federal recognition because that was going to provide services to the community and allow them more opportunity to establish themselves here. My grandfather was part of that. My Uncle Stanley was chairman here for 20 years, and I think that having that steady leadership has contributed to the success of the community, and I think all of them would be extremely proud to see where we are today, to see this facility come to fruition. I think this building is an important connection for the next generation. It really does feel like a home for our community.
When I started making them, you know, you're able to sit back and look at it, and you hear stories from your elders and people older than me that, you know, your grandparents were born in one of these, and so then you start figuring out how you're going to make it. You know, how did they make it? You know, how did they insulate it? How did they keep warm in the winter? You know. All these things going through your mind, and you're starting to figure, you know, how it's going to work, and that's how I created this project. I mean, what I'm doing right now, and I wanted to show the grandkids that it's all right, you know. You know, there's no two alike. You know, you could go to different reservations, you'll see them made differently, you know, and. That's what I told the grandkids, you know, be proud of what you do.
The Sami are the indigenous people of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and the Kola Peninsula of Russia, and many immigrated to the United States. Tucked away in a residential eastern Duluth, Minnesota neighborhood is the Sami Cultural Center of North America, an organization dedicated to the education about Sami and Sami American history and culture. It is a small center with a big mission.
The Sami people are the indigenous people of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and the Kola Peninsula of Russia. They're the European indigenous group.
It was in July of 2011 when the Sami Center of North America was founded, and it was in 2015 when the center moved into the Lakeside Professional Building. The center's mission is straightforward: educating the general public about the Sami culture.
Education is probably our main mission, educating other Sami Americans and the general public about the Sami and Sami issues. We try to do a lot of programming that's of interest to not only Sami Americans but the general public. We also do a lot of connecting of people from Sapmi and the United States. There's a lot of back and forth.
It was in 1994 when many Sami reclaimed their heritage and what is known as the Sami Reawakening, which occurred across North America, including Minnesota, which has a similar climate to that of their homelands. They also found similarities with the Native American cultures across North America.
The lifestyles are very similar, or were very similar, very nature-based. And the issues are very similar. The colonization issues are almost identical. Christianization, boarding schools, dealing with fishing and hunting rights, all of those same kind of issues. You know, we are brothers and sisters. This is a lavu, which is the traditional tent structure of the Sami people. It's often used in reindeer herding because the herds move, and so Sami needed a portable structure to move with them. You can probably see a similarity to a teepee. This is a gita, and it's a baby cradle, and it would be put on the back of a reindeer or hung in a tree or whatever, and it serves the same function as the cradles that we're familiar with the Ojibwe.
I learned about the Sami through a program Marlene did at the Cloquet Historical Society. And it was a very interesting program. I've always was interested in Indigenous people, Indigenous issues, and then later found out from some cousins about my own Sami heritage. Doji is the Sami word, and I love the literal translation is useful things made beautiful. It's a human impulse to create beauty. In a nomadic culture, that impulse, there isn't time or space to make oil paints and create large paintings. But if you need to tie your shoes so that neither the mosquitoes or the snow can get in, you need to tie them. Well, you're not just going to tie them with something plain, but to make it beautiful. Or if you're going to make a bag to keep really important things like salt or coffee, you want to make it beautiful as well as functional. And a knife, which, you know, of course is such an important tool. The knives are really well made and also decorated. Sami art is always tied to a useful item.
These and many other items are on display at the center, and Marlene and other volunteers develop exhibits they share with other agencies and institutions. The current one is called The Sami Reindeer People of Alaska.
It is an exhibit that educates and honors the Sami reindeer herders that were hired by the U.S. government in 1894 and 1898 to go to Alaska and teach native population there reindeer husbandry. Certainly reindeer herds were established in Alaska that are still functioning. In fact, there was just a reindeer youth summit in Nome, Alaska. In 1937, a law was passed that only allowed Native people to own reindeer herds, and the Sami were not considered natives at that point, so they had to disperse their herds. And of course, by that time, the Sami had intermarried with the native population, and so there are a lot of mixed Sami native folks in Alaska now. And it's a very not well-known piece of history. As you can see, we have a lot of books and other resources here. And we also have a close connection with the University of Minnesota in Duluth. We welcome people to come visit us.
For more information about Native Report or the stories we've covered, look for us on the web at nativereport.org, on Facebook, and on YouTube.
Thank you for spending this time with your friends and neighbors across Indian Country. I'm Rita Aspinwall.
And I'm Ernie Stevens. We'll see you next time on Native Report.
Rita Aspinwall is an enrolled member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and is an ICWA social worker with Fond du Lac Social Services. Ernie Stevens is a member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and is a film and television producer. Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Blandin Foundation, the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation, and the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux Community.